Hi, everybody. Thank you, Frank and Tanya, for inviting me, and thanks to all of you for attending. Today, I'm going to pretty much do two parts. First, I'm going to read a bit from my essay, which is about two of Bonnie's portable parks projects. And then in a second part, I'm going to allude to the curatorial challenges of exhibiting ephemeral performative art from the 60s and 70s, which I hope we can also then discuss a bit in the conversation with Frank. You know, everyone sort of started by saying where they met Bonnie. I honestly can't remember when. It was just like I've always known her somehow. I went to graduate school at Berkeley in the late 70s, and I for sure was aware of the farm. I went there. I knew of her, but I don't think we actually met until I moved back to San Francisco in 1999 when I was Director of Exhibitions and Public Programs at SFAI. So for me too, it's kind of intense to be here in the former SFAI space. In 1970, and forgive the reading please, it's just a way of containing the time. In 1970, Bonnie Ora Sherk imported trees, picnic tables, and live animals to downtown San Francisco for her portable parks 1 through 3 that temporarily transformed barren urban sites into green living spaces. Installed over a period of 4 days, one saw palms rising above a freeway overpass, sod-covered concrete traffic islands with picnic tables, and animals grazing on Maiden Lane. Spectacles that both surprised and amused audiences. Bonnie considered portable parks 1 to 3 just as ephemeral and durational as her other performances, all of which have endured through a handful of photographs and video. And it's so wonderful to be able to see how much more Tanya was able to dig up in mining Bonnie's archive. In 2011 to 12, I co-curated State of Mind, New California Art Circa 1970 with my dear late colleague and friend Connie Lewallen for the Getty Pacific Standard Time LALA. And by the way, it was the only show in the entire initiative that included both Southern and Northern California. Our exhibition focused on a new generation of artists who made conceptual art, performance, installation, and sound works that countered the commercialization of artistic production and interjected personal, political, and social content into the work. During 2 years of research, we visited more than 40 artists, including Bonnie, who showed us documentation of portable parks, sitting still, and public lunch. We reproduced the photos to her exact specs. She was very particular. And we also showed 2 videos that are seen at the top left. And I've made these composite images so you can see. So that is, forgive Ed Ruscha's every building on Sunset Boulevard in front, but Bonnie's work is on the back wall. And basically, for comparison, on the right, I am showing you an installation shot of Barbara Smith's Feed Me performance, which, like Bonnie's, included photos and video. Then as we go below, you'll see Suzanne Lacey's Anatomy Lessons and Al Rupersberg's Al's Hotel, both of which included photos and videos, but also performance ephemera, artifacts, three-dimensional sculpture, and as such, they read more as discrete installations. I'd like to acknowledge that it's true that there are vast differences in artists' archives and visual assets, as well as how they approach and care for these materials. Some are very meticulous, others less so. As curators, we do our very best to construct a semblance of an original, especially with video, but of course, mostly static, archive-like presentations just can't capture the energy of live performance. Recognizing this, the Getty also sponsored a PST Performance and Public Art Festival because so many of the exhibitions did include live work, and there was no kind of format or way to present all of these in the museums. I invited Bonnie to reimagine her portable parks 1 through 3. Produced with my public practice graduate students at Otis College of Art and Design, initially she hoped to install her new portable park 4, past, present, future, on the street. But due to strict city codes, we chose the Santa Monica Place Shopping Center. Designed by Frank Gehry in 1980, the center had just been renovated into an upscale green shopping destination. How would Bonnie translate her original concept from gritty 1970s downtown San Francisco to a 21st century mall adjacent to the Santa Monica beach? Well, as you can see from the top, the flower unfolding conceptual sketch at the left and the site and garden plans at the top created Portable Park 4, a series of petals, organic, raised bed gardens of flowers, vegetables, herbs, and trees with labels and signage designed by art students from the Crossroads School. After 10 unseasonably warm days with larger and more lively audiences, sorry, there's one more image here. We had the task of deinstalling the garden, which was visited by literally thousands of people. We had no idea we would have such an audience. Part of it was that it was part of PST, but part of it was like 75 or 80 degrees for the 10 days that we were there. Bonnie, so after the piece was up, you can see how it laid out in the petal forms, and that's a detail of what is of one of the beds, which is made with wattles of burlap, and you see a detail of the signs. After this, we successfully recycled everything. The burlap and the soil went back to the city of Santa Monica, and we donated the remaining plants to a school and a garden project. Bonnie successfully reimagined her 1970s project using her years of experience from a living library, ALL, as Patricia talked about. And I have to tell you a funny story, which is Bonnie wanted ALL to be part of the title. It was very important to her that it be included because to Bonnie, everything was a living library. However, the Santa Monica Public Library had a 30-year-long program called A Living Library. And Bonnie found this out, and she was furious. She said, no, A Living Library is my name. They can't have that. She literally called her lawyer. She wanted to figure out how she might be able to go after them for stealing all. So we made an agreement not to use, and also the mall is practically adjacent to the library. So we agreed, even though it was in her official title, we didn't use it in our publicity. So I'm just saying that because Bonnie could be, very intense, and she was not happy about it, but she did successfully imagine this. And all the knowledge she gained from the nonprofit, Living Library, a long-term pedagogical project with her Think Parks and organic gardening programs, were so critical to conceiving this project. Her portable parks 1 through 3 are critical forerunners to now ubiquitous pocket parks, parklets, and parking lot gardens, which someone else pointed out, while her portable park 4 is informed by these 50 years of work as an environmental activist, landscape architect, and educator. Now I'm going to switch gears. Oops, sorry. Uh-oh, how do I go back?
Just a tiny button.
Oh, okay, there we go. Now I'm going to briefly turn to the curatorial challenges of ephemeral and performative work. First is the artist. Are they open to exhibiting documentation of live work, and if so, how? Or do they consider it a poor substitute for the original? My former longtime colleague from USC, Amelia Jones, has written extensively about how performance documentation is absolutely not just supplemental, but an integral extension of the original moment of performance. Others, disagree with that, but, for instance, Chris Burden was so acutely aware of the importance of his performances, even as a young artist, that he made his performance artifacts into relics, and of course into, static works of art. On the other hand, Robert Irwin wouldn't allow his works photographed because he felt that they could never approach what he wanted them to be in terms of their conceptual and perceptual and phenomenological qualities. Second is the archive. Is it accessible? Is it viewable? And are the materials intact and exhibitable? And if the artist is no longer alive, does a gallery or state need to provide permissions? These are all questions that come up when you try to do the bulk of your research within an artist's archive, as opposed to borrowed works. These and other questions must be answered before a curator can even begin to select work and envision a kind of reproduction or reinvention for an exhibition. I personally believe that it is critical for the curator to reanimate the work through live performance and interactive opportunities for the viewer whenever possible. So as a curator and scholar of fluxus and intermedia, I've had to grapple with this problematic of documentation and representation, for many, many years. These works were never intended to be inside a white cube. And so what I'm now going to do is show you two examples, a group exhibition of historical work from 30 years ago and a more recent retrospective. So what you see on the screen is the In the Spirit of Fluxus exhibition from the Walker Art Center, which was in 1992, and it toured nationally during the next 2 years. The director, Martin Friedman, would only agree to acquire a significant Fluxus collection for the Walker unless the curators promised to do a major explanation as to why he should spend over 6 figures on a bunch of plastic boxes. That was the direct quote. And by the way, the person who assembled the collection, another dear late friend, was Stephen Lieber, who many of you know had the most phenomenal collection of ephemera and performance documentation. At the left, so basically, the curators agreed, and they brought in a team of Fluxus scholars like myself, and we did an exhibition that included a whole range of things. At the top left, you see what I call enshrined ephemera. This is when, things like Fluxus boxes or other kinds of, archival materials simply cannot be touched. And this show was done on at the dawn of the digital age. And I will kid you not, there was a CD-ROM, does anyone remember CD-ROMs, that you could go to on a little kiosk and open the Fluxus box to see what the contents were. This is how difficult it was in the early days of media. But actually, the Walker stuck to the original media in most of the work from the 60s. So for instance, there was Super 8 film that was projected. There was no real video projection. There was a WDR German television station of the very first Fluxus festival from Wiesbaden that had been televised. But anyway, the poster in the middle is what I'd like to direct your attention to. I don't know how much you can read, but it shows all the robust programming that we tried to do to make the work come alive. We had a Flux Forum, an opening day symposium, which is what I was in charge of organizing. We had live Flux tours with Namjoon Paik leading them. We had the Flux films, and we had performances such as the piano duet performed by Larry Miller and Ben Vautier, seen at the right. Below are 2 complete reinventions, Ben Vautier's Ben's Window, which is a recreation of his living sculpture when he lived in the one gallery in London for a month. That's seen in the black and white storefront photo. And Ben's Window, the new version, where he stayed but just for the opening weekend. He was 66 years old and he was not going to sign up to stay in the Walker for a month. But these are just, and then finally on the right, the far right, you see one slide of the Fluxus Labyrinth, which was recreated. It's a Fluxus collective piece that was re-actualized, and people had to sign waivers, but this could never happen today. The liability would be too great. I can't remember when it came to SF MoMA, if they did the Labyrinth or not, but they did do a lot of performances, as they did at Santa Barbara Museum of Art, Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, and in Europe. So these are some of the things that one can do to try to help enliven this work. Next, I will show you a show that maybe some of you saw. It's called By Allison Knowles, a retrospective with 1962 to 1922 at the Berkeley Art Museum in 2022. In these installation shots, you can see some of the things that we did using large-scale photo reproductions, which are now possible. Now digital media is such that AI can scan a very poor photograph and blow it up as large as a gallery wall. We also use this scale shift and video projection to produce a kind of variation to counterbalance all the encased works, again, archival pieces that cannot be touched. We also reconstructed 2 major works, which are, the large-scale book, the boat book that you see in the top slides, and below on the right, the bean garden. And here you can see students moving their hands through the beans to activate hidden mics that amplified their gestures, creating a sound work. And then on the top right, you see UC Berkeley students who performed an evening of Allison Knowles' scores for the Berkeley Art Museum's full program that occurs on the night of the full moon. And below that, you see 2 slides of a very auspicious opening day event, participation event, in which visitors of all ages enacted the score, Celebrate All Things Red, which was originally written in the 60s, by bringing and placing a single red found object onto a huge red grid. And in other sites where Allison has done this, the floor piece is transferred to a wall, and it remains up during the show, but unfortunately we couldn't do that at Berkeley. I'm going to end here with just a few details of the excellent installation of Bonnie Sherk life frames. Just showing you a few moments, this larger-than-life projection of Public Lunch, which just is, it's so amazing to see that instead of having it on this tiny monitor. And then also the wonderful designated space for the farm, filled with undiscovered, unseen ephemera from community events, programs, and partnerships. This can only result from a curatorial process that takes extreme patience, clear vision, and often years of work. But it goes a long way to honor and elucidate an artist's practice. In Bonnie's case, this is accomplished by capturing salient moments and the sustained/sustainable impact of her work on communities that now exceeds her lifetime. Kudos to Tanya and to Fort Mason Center for the Arts. Thanks. Thank you.